Can I talk about 2020?
Yeah, we should get into that.
When our likes are becoming louder than God's voice,
Well,
that is really dangerous.
it is made,
Yeah.
it is programmed to make you want more
Yeah.
likes, make
Yeah.
you want more comments. So like,
I was in a bad headspace.
yeah,
Like,
there was this creeping thought of, hey, if you do it this way, then it'll be better and more people
Yeah.
will like it. And so like you're performing your faith.
something also me and you would constantly ask is, am I doing this for the audience of one?
Scarcity mindset of like, if
Yeah.
I don't do this, if I don't hold on to this so tightly,
Yeah.
God's not going to bless it.
All right, babe, but I really want to know,
Uh-oh.
for real, be totally honest. I won't be offended. How have you liked all this like super healthy stuff that I've been making for you lately?
Actually,
real.
it's been so good. You've been making, Stephanie's been making these super healthy, very, very good ingredients I'm not used to eating. Like the other day, she made me like baked kale chips or something. It was actually bomb. You gave it to me when I was meeting with one of my clients, and I was like, I like tried it, and I was like, oh wow, this is really good. So I'm liking it. When you said, babe, I want you to be honest with me, my first thought was, it's a trap. And I was like, oh no. But yes, I've been really liking the food. You've been doing a really good job.
It's been so fun. I'm not much of a, Caleb cooks probably 90% of the time, but the last couple weeks, it's been me.
Chef Gordon Ramsay Stefanie.
Last week. Yeah. Last couple of weeks.
You've been killing it.
It's fun. I liked finding healthy options, like lots
Yeah.
of veggies and
You've been
healthy
really good at
options.
Well, with that in mind, shall I introduce us?
Yes.
Well, welcome to the Wholehearted Love podcast. My name is Caleb.
And I'm Stefanie.
my beautiful, amazing, incredible wife who looks fantastic in red. And I love the way you look today. You look so beautiful. But this is a place where we talk about faith, love, heartbreak, and we want you to come as you are, wherever you are in relationships, single, dating, engaged, married, divorced, wherever you are, this is the place for you.
Yeah, we want it to be a place where you can walk away after these episodes and feel like you can love God, others, and yourself more through Jesus's eyes. And that's our prayer of us doing this. We've wanted that as well. And I feel like we walk away more in love, with God, others, and he expands our hearts for each other and other people. And also learning to love ourselves more through Jesus's eyes.
I mean, in the last minute, I fallen more in love with you.
Thank
Looking
you.
at you, you look pretty.
Thank you.
I like it. You're amazing. But today,
I wore my hair like this for a wedding, kind of.
Hey.
Except for I didn't have these little things. I just had it slicked back super.
Those little things look good.
But for our wedding, it was raining. So
I know. Our wedding pictures are there behind the camera.
Does it look like that? My hair right now?
It does a little bit. You look so
Nice.
beautiful. You look more beautiful than the day we got married.
Thank you, baby.
You're
you
amazing.
You know what? I'm nervous about today's episode.
Yeah, real talk.
It was something, as God put on our heart to do this podcast, and I woke up and this was in January, he kept putting on our heart, do this podcast. And I would in the middle of the night, wake up with a dream and have all these ideas that I felt like God was downloading to me. And this was one of them. And this is episode 19 or something like that. And it's been intimidating to talk about this subject because I don't think we ever have told this story anywhere. But I think it's going to be really encouraging. And I think there's going to be some really amazing ways that you can hopefully listen to this episode, learn from our mistakes, but also we're going to give some really tangible things of how to walk in your purpose, in your relationship purpose or your purpose with God or whatever way in your life that you can just walk and have your eyes fixed on Jesus and not on others. I think it's going to be really good. So
and 5 traps that you might, or traps that might get in the way of those things.
Of the purpose that God has for you, your relationship purpose, your purpose in life. And so
good.
It's titled, this episode, I Almost Lost Myself as a Christian Influencer, and let go of people pleasing and walk into purpose, and ways that we can hinder like our purpose from God and how to walk in freedom from that.
Yeah. It's going to be good.
It's going to be good. Do you want me to just kind of start with a story of what happened?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love
and then
for you to start that. Get to the juicy details.
Okay, so when Caleb and our first 3 years of marriage, we were teachers, and I was a counselor and a teacher, and with Caleb, and we loved doing that. And we taught at a Christian school, and I taught Bible and relationships, and you taught history. And during that time, I kept seeing my students where they were hanging out was on their phones on social media. And this was in 2013 that it started. And Instagram, I think, started in 2012.
Yeah.
So it was very, very new. I could be a little off on my dates, but it was very new. But that is where kids were hanging out in my classroom on social media. Yeah. And I remember they had us teach this class. For me specifically, I had to teach this digital creation or social media class. And basically, this curriculum said, never touch social media and like, just stay away like it's the plague or something like that. And I was just laughing because I was seeing them always on their phones. And instead, I was like, how do we empower people to do this in a way that honors God? And I saw such a power in what was happening and all this influence that the people online were having on my students. And a lot of that influence was for a lot of bad things and to do things that weren't honoring to God and weren't pointing them towards their purpose and direction. So God had put this dream on my heart. What if you shared the gospel and about healthy relationships on platforms like Instagram? Yeah. And I didn't use that. I loved photography. I loved like sharing and writing. And I'd always been a writer. I remember having a blog back in the day. But God had put on my heart to do this. And I remember telling you about it. So we had an Instagram. I said, let's just start posting little stories about our love life, how God's worked in our life, our redemption story. This was way back, I think 2013, 2014, that we would write these little stories and post them online. Yeah. And our heart was to be a good influence online and to shine God's love. And I believe all of us have a purpose from God, and he made it really clear, and it's go and make disciples of all nations. Wow. And I was like, okay, that would be so cool to be able to do that. And God kept calling me to this online space of how to go and make disciples of all nations.
Yeah.
So what did you think about I was like, that when I told you?
Social media, like Instagram, like what are we doing here? But I always believed in you. I know that you hear like directly from God, and not like audibly, but like you definitely have that close-knit relationship where you hear him in specific ways. So I was like, okay, let's do it. I had no idea what I was doing, but I also was like, okay, let's just go for it. Yeah. And so walking that step of faith was, one of the things that we did is we had been saving for a while to go to Europe.
For I think those 3 years, because it was 2016.
We made no money at that school, like no money.
We made all these sacrifices to say no to things to try to like save pennies to go to Europe.
We took all that money and we put it into starting, this ministry and wanting to help people online, which we had no idea. At that point, it wasn't. Nowadays it's like cool to do something online, or like it's
cool to share about Jesus online. I didn't know
you're so cool for doing this and that. And we didn't know a single person doing it. It was people were just posting pictures of themselves, their lives, and all that kind of stuff. There wasn't anybody. I'm sure there were people doing it, but like, especially not people in our Christian space doing it. And so we were like, okay, let's try and do this.
Yeah. And it was before all the mainstream, like cool Christian stuff that at least that I knew about. Like it was, when I first became a Christian, it was not cool to be a Christian at all. Like
especially not online.
For me, becoming a Christian in 2007, it was not cool at Penn State or any people that I knew. There wasn't all like the cool bands that
Justin
there are
Bieber
now.
hadn't come out and
as a Christian, all those things. So anyways, it was just so different than it is now, and the atmosphere it is now. And we didn't know, I had never seen like people sharing about God online I was just seeing what my kids were looking at mostly. And so in 2016, you took another teaching job. I went full time into this ministry that we had no idea what we were doing, but I would just share stories of how God saved my life. If you scroll way back to our Instagram.
We did this the other night.
Yeah.
We were like looking at our old pictures way back on Stephanie's Instagram, because I didn't start mine until later.
Well, we were doing mine together.
We did, together.
It was called Unshakable Crown.
Let's go. Unshakable Crown.
Which means unshakable means Caleb, and crown means Stefanie, or Stefanie means crown. And it was that, when we have God, we're unshakable, and we're wearing this crown of beauty because we're God's kids. And that was our mission. Remember, that was our name. So it wasn't even Stefanie Rouse.
I know.
It was our names.
It was our names together. And it took so much explaining, like that whole thing that you just did. Like people were like, what does that mean? And we'd have to explain it. And then one day I was like, Stefanie, you should just make it your name. And I feel like that was a moment that God was like, took it to where it is now, which is crazy.
Yeah. And it was, if you scroll way, way back, you'll see pictures of our lives and then testimonies or stories of God's goodness in the midst of it. And some of the things like very vulnerable. It's kind of like a picture in the, my bio, I think it's always said diary of Jesus saving me. And if you look way back, it really kind of is like a piece of my diary of how Jesus has saved me, how he's helped our marriage, how he rescues us when we're in these dark places. And I was also doing photography. None of that paid money, and we wanted to make it something that we could actually make money. So I loved photography and weddings. So we were wedding photographers. And so we highlighted our wedding clients, and we spoke life and love over their marriage. And so it's funny because what we do now is speak life and love over people's future marriages and marriages. But we don't do wedding photography anymore.
No.
But it was crazy. So we were posting all these things. And then we would take photos of the different adventures we would go on, and we started getting reached out to by different brands because I don't know if we were at 10,000 or 20,000 followers when brands started reaching out. And then we would do a whole wedding, and it would take I was at the wedding for 8 hours. We would do their engagement photos, and then it would take me like a whole week to edit the photos. I would take so many photos of my clients and edit them, and it took forever.
And you did such a good job. Like you made it
really high end and
very
special.
High end. You made it so special for them. And so it took a lot of time. And then we would do like a brand deal.
And it was the same amount of money. So the same amount of money,
way less time,
that we would get from a whole entire wedding and spend 20, 30, 40 hours. I don't know how many hours I spent.
So many.
And then we would spend 2 hours on a brand deal, and it was the same amount of money. And we were like, oh, whoa, this is crazy. And we could still do share our ministry, share about God's love online, but then also take these brand deals. So that's the direction we shifted into going to. Also, my hands were like shot from editing so much, and I did all these free photos for people at our church.
These like braces on your
at
hands
night. Remember that?
I remember that.
Do you remember we took pictures of all the people because we went to Angelus Temple and we took all these pictures of people that were displaced, and like my hands were rough. So we then got to have less work. It was more sustainable work that we still got to share God's love, but then share our stories. And then we partnered with brands. And our vision, since we very first started, my why was to make disciples of all nations. My purpose was to share the light of Christ and do so in an authentic, vulnerable way, and to do so together. And our marriage, hopefully being a testament of God's forgiveness, thankfulness, all the things. And so, and we would always ask these 3 questions. Do you remember the 3 questions? Mm-hmm. Do you want to say them?
Yeah. So does it honor God?
Yeah.
Does it help anybody else? And is it not just about me?
Yeah. And is it on brand? So we always ask those questions before we posted anything. And if we couldn't say yes to those, we didn't post. If it's not honor to God, if it's not serving anyone else but ourselves, and if it's not on brand, then we wouldn't post it. And so our whole time posting online, I do feel like we kept that heart and still keep that heart. But, and this is where the vulnerable part of the story gets, is as we were getting all these opportunities and all of these brands, reaching out, and you would reach out, and it was started to become really overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
and I started putting a ton of pressure on myself. And I really struggled with not feeling good enough. And I started like old lies I had believed previously, because we were walking in this way of, sharing the gospel, but we were also, wanting things to perform well. And you always had the same heart, which literally, I don't even know how God made you so amazing, that you literally always had the same heart of not comparing yourself to anyone, of saying, you would say to me, and he still says says this now. It's like, it does not matter how many likes you get, how many people view it, was it what God put on your heart to do? Was it honoring to him? If you can say yes to that, then you should be so proud of yourself.
Yep.
And the posts that get the least amount of likes might have changed the most.
Yes.
Like someone's heart the most. And, it's been so cool in our ministry. What God put on our heart has happened. People have told us they've come to know Jesus through our reels, through our posts, through our ministry.
And you have such good things to say. You have amazing things to say and such great things to share. And so whether or not there's a video, the algorithm can work differently for any number of reasons. So God calls you to share it. You got to share it.
Exactly.
There's good things he's put on your heart to share. And I know it's impacting people.
Yeah, but I didn't always know that. You always had that, but there was times that it wouldn't perform well. Like I, would post something and lose followers or, and just put so much pressure on myself to perform. And God had broken off this performance mindset over me. And I was just like, I don't want to do things if I feel like I'm performing.
Yeah.
And so that is a trap that I think I really, really fell into. And the trap of people's approval, because it was almost like I was looking for external validation by likes or comments or all of these things. And I think of Saul. And in 1 Samuel 15:24, it says, Then Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned. I violated the Lord's command and your instructions. I was afraid of men, so I gave in to them. And when our likes are becoming louder than God's voice, that is really dangerous. And I wasn't disobeying God, but I believe sometimes his voice got quieter, and these lies of people's approval and looking to that sometimes became louder. And I hate to say that, because I believe we started so pure. God wanted our hearts to be so pure. And I feel like there's such a purity in what we have done and the shift that happened in 2020. But looking back, I think it was like 2018, 2019, I was in a bad headspace. Like I loved God and I was wanting to honor him. And I believe I was obedient to him in so many ways. Like you didn't see me like walking separate from God.
No, you always walked with God. And so I have a very glass half full perspective on life, just in general. And I think you were doing such a good job of being authentically you. But I think there's this juxtaposition between being authentically you, which you are, and you are unashamedly, Stefanie is unashamedly like herself. Like she really is. And I love that about you. But I think there's this thing with online and being in the online space, having several thousand, now hundreds of thousands of followers, that people, it's really like the algorithm, the platform, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever those things are, YouTube, it is made, it is programmed to make you want more likes, make you want more comments. So like, it's almost, you were like walking this, like, I want to be authentic, but like, if I'm not fully like, if I kind of like squeeze in this other thing, like I can also get like, it'll more help it. And so I think you had such a pure motive. But I think it was really hard because you have this external thing pulling at you, being like, hey, you got to do this. And I don't think that was wrong of you. I just think that we had to figure out, okay, where are we going to land in all of this? Because we want to be ourselves, but we also don't want to be driven by just money, just fame, by any of these things. We wanted to be excellent at what we did. We want to be excellent at honoring God, excellent at helping people, excellent helping people in the relationships, but we didn't want to sacrifice
who we were.
our soul,
Yeah.
you know, honestly, for money, brands, or any of those kind of things.
2017, 18, 19, when like our, Instagram really took off and getting these brand deals, it was before Reels. It was
Yeah.
before Instagram Reels, the little videos for people that don't know. But it was before that. It was a picture-based platform.
Yeah.
And the more beautiful and exotic the picture, usually the more likes and
Back
validation.
then, it was like, now I feel like there's so much more of a move towards authenticity.
Yeah.
But back then, it was not. Like,
No.
it had to be the most beautiful place, the most perfect dress, the most perfect, this is terrible English, but the most perfect, like, every little, like, filters. Like, oh my gosh, everybody was selling presets to, like, make their pictures look a certain way. And it was, like, very much having the perfect grid and all these different things.
And so that instead of just getting
it.
to be present with God, when we would go places, I was thinking of the perfect shot sometimes and the perfect picture. And I remember taking some pictures, like I kept having you take picture after picture. Like the way we take pictures and videos now is so peaceful.
It's a very peaceful experience, and we get to, take pictures, and it doesn't take us very long, and we get to really enjoy it and have these moments where we can be so much more present. And I feel like before, we had a hard time being present because we were just looking for the perfect moment or picture or whatever that was.
Right. And it made me feel like you probably felt like you could never do good enough at the shot.
Yeah.
Because I kept being like, you didn't do it like this and this and that. And I was so performance based. Something also me and you would constantly ask is, am I doing this for the audience of one?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good question for anyone to ask themselves right now. For anything they're doing, are we doing it for people's approval? Or are we doing this for the audience of one? And I think that's really important because Jesus is our one. And I don't think we should ever let any other voices get more loud. Like if we're more concerned about pleasing people, then we'll be like Saul. And what happened to Saul is he lost his role of being king. He lost his purpose because he specifically said, I was more afraid of people. And so let us learn from his lesson.
I love this story in Luke 7:37-38. And it's just such a powerful reminder of like, it does not matter what other people think. It does not matter what else is going on. Like our goal is to serve Jesus. And this is about the woman with the alabaster jar. And a woman in that town brought an alabaster jar of perfume. And as she stood behind him and at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears. And she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them.
And that's Jesus. Yeah,
onto Jesus. And just a powerful moment of like, I'm going to go serve God despite what's going on. And I think, Stefanie always asks, like, is this honoring to God? Is it serving anybody? And is it on brand to our mission? And I think that like, it just became really hard to be able to do that like all the time. We prayed that when we would post, but like when we would have these moments, like trying to go shoot the photo or do these things, like there was this creeping thought of, hey, if you do it this way, then it'll be better and more people will like it. And so like you're performing your faith and you're performing these different things online instead of just being like you.
Remember do you remember the little like dog filter that I always use?
Yeah.
And
it was like 2016, I think.
When people use the stories, they use these filters. And I got so used to seeing my face with the filter on it. And I think it was 2021, God was like, I don't want you to use filters anymore. And he did such a work in 2020, what we're going to talk about. But to show up with my face without a filter and my like eyes distorted and my teeth like super white and like everything was like, my face was like perfectly perfect, because it takes out any imperfections.
Your face is perfectly perfect right now.
Well,
and every day.
Well, because of
no filter,
beauty on the inside, right?
No filter will ever take that away.
But I put so much pressure on there's so much pressure on women to look perfect, and you comparing yourself to these images online, and the more perfect someone looks, the more followers they have. I mean, it's just the case, like the people that have the most followers are the ones that get the most plastic surgery and the Kardashians, and not God bless them all, but like, that is just how life is, like how we're seeing it. And it's so much about this perfection. And I think all of that created this like performance. And it also was, I wanted these amazing captions and these really thoughtful things. And I was so hungry for God, but I was also hungry to give what God gave me away. But sometimes that was too quick.
Yeah.
And so for number 3, I would say spiritual burnout. And I love this scripture in Luke 10:41-42. It says, Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. Or indeed, only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. The story is when Mary was sitting at Jesus's feet, and that was the thing that Jesus said is the most important. The only thing is sitting at Jesus's feet. And Martha was busy doing all these things for Jesus, and Mary was sitting, being present with Jesus.
Yeah.
And I do believe during that time, there was moments I was just present with Jesus. We would go to worship nights. We would worship all the time in our house.
Reading our Bible every day.
Morning before looking at our phones. We had those boundaries. Like, we were seeking God. I was constantly reading Christian books and learning more and like hungering for God and having great spiritual Bible studies and friendships. And we were serving at our church, like all the things. So it's not like we weren't living in sin. We weren't doing things that were sinful, like outwardly or something like, but my heart posture at times, instead of sitting at Jesus's feet, was how can I do more and more for Jesus? And he was teaching me so much about boundaries. We went to Hume Lake for this marriage retreat, and we had our phones off that whole it was like 4 days. And since that retreat, we for years turned off our phone at least one day a week, the entire day. And we still do it, not every week, but a lot of weeks that we just turn off our phone the whole day. But I delete Instagram now, and I've been doing this for how many years? I delete it every single weekend, probably for at least 5 years. And I delete it every weekend, so I can't even open the app, or I just take it off my home screen. But it's just a way to be more present instead of scrolling, instead of checking like analytics, instead of, because where we go to fill us up matters. And what Mary went to was sitting at Jesus's feet. What I want to go to, what I encourage all of us to go to, is sitting at Jesus's feet for our being present with him, for our approval, not what we can do for Jesus, but who Jesus says we are. And then out of that abundance that we can love and serve, but not be for it, and I think when we get filled up and to serve out of that abundance is what he's been teaching us by taking the weekends off every single weekend of social media, getting our worth first and most from him and all from him so that everything can be overflow. Yeah,
absolutely. That's been one of the biggest blessings. I feel like we just felt like we had to be on. And that I actually really look forward to not being on my phone in that way, like on social media on the weekends. Like, it's such a blessing. And honestly, I think it's however many times our reach on social media by taking time away from it.
100%.
Like, it has expanded our platform, whatever you want to call it. Not that that's what it's about, but like, just, I think so many times we, as people, we miss out on what God has for us because we're just not listening to him. Like, we have that, we've talked about this in several, videos, that scarcity mindset of like, if I don't do this, if I don't hold on to this so tightly, God's not going to bless it. And sometimes God's like, hey, you got to like give that to me. And
then I can bless it.
Relax, like chill. Like chill out. And then I will bless it. And he's done that for us. Like, we've seen that. It's crazy what God has been able to do. And that's just transferring to 5 days a week.
It's interesting because obedience in the short run, it makes me think of the tortoise and hare in a lot of ways, that in the short run, you see people that they get so far ahead, those that don't have healthy boundaries, those that aren't seeking God first, those that are kind of muddying the waters, and you see them pull ahead and they're so far ahead, but then they have a massive burnout. And the slow and steady of taking time in God's presence, going to him first, it's a slower burn, but just crazy how it's like the tortoise and the hare. And that's what it was for us. And
God moves at such a different speed than we do. Like, he can really speed things up. He can slow things down. Like, God is not bound by our sense of time. And I've seen that in our lives so many times. It's really powerful.
Can I talk about 2020?
Yeah, we should get into that.
Okay. So this was crazy. In 2020, we had so many brand deals. We had just had our best year, right?
Yeah.
Before you had so much so you were able to quit your teaching job in 2019 and go full time so that we could, make up that salary together with basically brand deals. And
we were crushing it.
And it was fun and great. All these adventures, travel blogging, getting to partner with cities around the world. It was super fun.
Yeah.
But then in 2020, very early on, we had just had like the coolest brand deal ever. And it was so fun. But I felt like God was saying, I do not want you to take any more brand deals. And I was like, what, God? And I kept praying and kept feeling him saying, I don't want you to take any more brand deals. And I was like, what? Caleb just quit his job. We're not making any other forms of income. Like, what are we going to do? And we had a couple really big opportunities, and they were for the most money and some of the best opportunities that we had. And we prayed over both, and God was clearly saying, I want you to not take these. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Do you remember hiking? We were at Griffith and we were praying over it, and we had to send the email, and I was like, we have to say no. And you're like, you're right.
Our friends thought we were crazy.
Yeah.
They were like, no, you should definitely do that.
Yeah, our friends in our Bible study, the different things, and some of them walking beside us during it was like, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah.
And we're like, God's going to provide. We're just stepping in obedience. And so we said no to all of these opportunities. Now, we had no idea that in March, because this was all like January, February, and March 10th, my birthday, LA gets shut down because of the global pandemic. And all of those brand deals that we were considering that God told us to say no to, none of them happened because of the global pandemic. They were specifically, there were some travel-based things. There were some things that the companies couldn't provide. There was so much else going on in 2020. And God had pivoted us to really get Cultivate Relationship program fully going, start working with clients, like perfect that, and, really work on helping people get healed from heartbreak so they could have godly marriages. So he really pivoted us from not doing any brand deals for pretty much since then, other than, so it's 2025 right now.
Crazy.
And since 2020, we have hardly taken a brand deal unless we felt so much peace from God.
Very mission aligned.
Super, super mission aligned. Because I felt like my voice was standing for so much, so that I felt like it was...
And we were actually already very picky. Like we wouldn't do at that time.
It's the stuff we liked still, we would say yes to.
We were not doing anything that we wouldn't actually use. Because we wanted our voice to stand for something. But it became, we're standing for all these different things. We're taking all these different deals. Like we got to pull back a little bit because we didn't want it to be about that. We wanted our voice to matter
for Jesus,
for the things that God has called us to, and the voice that he's had us, rather than I'm a spokesperson for a million brands, which is like what happens.
For number 4, identity crisis. Hey friend, I hope you're loving this episode so far. We are so excited because you might have heard about Cultivate Relationships, the program that we have that has changed hundreds of lives of people all over the world, people walking into godly marriages after so much heartbreak. We are about to have a new enrollment, so sign up on the wait list below so you can be the first to hear if you want that transformation and walk into an amazing godly marriage. And now back to the episode. Who are you without the platform? Who are you without these brand deals? Who are you with that? I think about whatever you're doing in life, how powerful it is to just know who you are apart from anything or anyone else besides Jesus. And that even goes with marriage. Like someone here listening of like, how is this relating to relationships? Your purpose and how you walk out life is going to drastically affect how your life is with your spouse. And if you or your spouse are not walking in God's purpose, there's going to be such a level of discontentment. And we felt that. But when we walked in our purpose, we were obedient to God and knowing who we are, like every weekend, and we take the weekends and then the nights off our phone and not having, we've been good at just posting and then not reopening Instagram 100 times a day, and just giving it to God so that our worth can be in him. And I think of Jesus in Matthew 3:17. It says, and a voice from heaven said, "This is my son whom I love. With him I am well pleased." And that's what God said to Jesus. And that was just him starting his public ministry. But whatever
He
God
said this before Jesus did anything.
Yep.
Like Jesus didn't, feed the 5,000. He
Yeah.
didn't heal it. Like God was so pleased with Jesus.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like a word for people. Like sometimes our identity is in our marriage. Sometimes our identity is in our work, that really high successful job.
Or being a mom
ministry
or a dad.
opportunity. Yeah. That being a mother, whatever those things are. And God is saying like, if you took all that away,
Yeah.
I love you so much.
Yeah.
I care about you so much. You are special to me. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
With you, I am well pleased. And I think we need to receive that sometimes more. I think that for us, it was a transition of this platform is us to we're outside of that, and we're not our worth. If we lost all of it tomorrow, our worth is not in any of that. God has so much, God brought it, and it wasn't something that makes us who we are. We're the same people. You're the same woman I fell in love with. That innocent, really cute, just loves God with her whole heart person. I fell in love with you back then. You're every bit of that. You take away all of this, I would still love you to the day I die because I love you. I care about you. You're the person that God made you to be, and I think people need to hear that and they need to believe that. And I think we needed that reminder of God's proud of us. He's with us. And with him, we can do anything. Apart from him, we can do nothing. And I think we were trying to take too much control.
Yeah. Yeah. You're making me tear up because your words are so beautiful. And I love thinking of that. I think if in 2018, if everything had disappeared, I would have been so rocked. And I just want to do whatever we can to honor God. And I just feel so at peace with that. And I was reading today and just meditating on God's thoughts towards you are more, and they outnumber the grain of sands on the seashore. He has good thoughts towards you. He's not disappointed in you. He adores you. He says, I love you, my daughter, my son, not because of anything you can do for me, but because of who you are in me. I created you as a masterpiece, this beautiful, stunning, more precious and more priceless than the Mona Lisa. That is what your worth is. So much so, I gave everything. That's what Jesus is saying to you. I gave everything to have you. I gave my very life. And that is how Jesus, he just started ministering to us in a whole new way as we threw off, and we're wildly obedient to say no to these massive streams of income and saying yes to a deeper purpose. And so I feel like I was losing part of myself. I was losing myself and I was in a dark place, and then walking with Jesus, throwing off the old, walking in the new, and he keeps refining us. So as someone's listening to this, I just pray that you would know that over any identity you've tried to place above Jesus, as mom, as dad, as coach, as, someone on social media, as the volunteer leader at your church, whatever it is, the best identity is your identity. The first and most identity, your identity in Jesus.
Absolutely. And the enemy doesn't lie super loud. The enemy wants to make you so busy that you don't believe God's truth. That you're not there listening to God's truth. And I think all of those things you just said are so powerful. We need to run to God. Our identity is in nothing but him alone. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah. And our identity isn't about our achievements. And it's so easy to see people get different things, and it's making me think, even with identity crisis, how much comparison can kill our purpose, because we think, oh, they're doing this, so I need to do this. Maybe God is calling some Christians to, get all their money from brand deals. Yeah, but if he's not calling us to do that, we can't compare ourselves to anyone else, and we can't judge someone else's walk. I know, great Christians that is how they make their revenue, and that's great. But if I'm living out someone else's call, I have to only answer for my call. And so
the talents that he gave you.
Yes. And we're not cookie cutters. He doesn't given us, like, we all are part of the body of Christ, called to do specific work. And we're meant to walk out our call, not someone else's call in this work. And so I think it's so easy to compare and try to do it like someone else versus like God. That's honestly, people ask, why did you move to Pittsburgh? Because we were living in LA.
Ask us that all the
we
time.
had so many friends that were doing similar things to us, Christian, like content creators, influencers. And they're like, why did you come to Pittsburgh? We don't even know any Christian content creator or anything around the area. And like, isn't that bad for your ministry? But honestly, I think God had us come here. One of the reasons, and there's others, but to hear what he has told us to do and get into our lane and not try to conform. Because as I was hanging out with all my girlfriends and we were all kind of doing like similar content together, which was great and fun. And there's, different time and season for everything. But he had us do things that were so different than anyone else we knew. He gave me downloads and new downloads. When I started to do like prayer challenge for your husband, I'd never seen anyone do anything like that. But God gave me a download to do that. And would I have heard it if I was walking in LA and trying to do things like other people?
Millions of people across the world have been transformed through prayer because you did that. And because God separated you and pulled you across the country to hear his voice. I feel like we were, in a lot of ways, like, bear with me here, but like, you go to like one of those arcades. We were just at Kennywood the other day, Pittsburgh's premier theme park. And we were there.
It's awesome. My dad built like most of the theme park.
He was showing us all these buildings that he built with like bricks and all that.
He's a boss.
He is a boss. And we were into the arcade, and there's this machine that our nephew used, and you put a thing in there, like you use like a credit, and then it has that claw. You know what I'm talking about, people. And the claw goes down, and you can pick any item, and it picks it up and then drops it out. I feel like God was doing that. Like we were in this thing in LA, and we were like blending in with everything else, and we were doing our thing, like doing our own thing, but still like in a crowd of people. And God like went and picked us up and put us somewhere else, and like, hey, I have something different for you. And he wanted us to be able to hear his voice. And I feel like because of that, and because we decided to listen, I think we could have said, that's scary. Like moving to Pittsburgh's scary. Moving away from our family here is scary. We're now next to Stefanie's family, but like moving away from everything, for me, it's the first time I lived outside of California in my entire life. Scary. But when we walk in obedience to God, like he gets the opportunity to bless us in ways that we never thought. And for us, it was, hey, I need to separate you at least for a time. And we're still in that time of like, God, you're just teaching us new things. We're able to hear you because we're not trying to be like anybody else. And like, I feel like that is the fifth thing. It's like comparing yourself to other people can impact your purpose. Just like you on a highway, if you're driving on a highway and a cool car drives up next to you and you start looking at that cool car, if you continue to look at that, you're going to crash because you're not looking in your lane. You're not staying in your lane. And so I think so many times when we view the calling of somebody else and we compare ourselves with that, that's where we can get derailed. And I know that that's a temptation, especially for us online, because everybody's platform is displayed in front of us. And like, why did they get that opportunity? Why did they get that book deal or whatever? And it's easy to be like, why, instead of being like, what, God, do you want to do here? And how can I be obedient?
I love that so much. And it makes me think of when you show up on social media, that we can compare our lives to, hey, my husband's not like that husband. My wife's not like that wife. I don't have that cute baby that I've been praying for, but they just got pregnant with their fifth. Like, what makes me less lovable, God? That they're getting these blessings. That's what comparison does. Like you said, the wreck versus just being grateful for whatever God's given you and where you're going to.
Baller Taurus in the lane.
That was our old car, and I love that car. And I think that the opposite of comparison is gratitude and looking to Jesus. And it says, let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and now is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. And it says, like, because of him who like endured such opposition, do the same and be like-minded. And that we are meant to look to Jesus, to fix our eyes on him and do what he has called us to do. To make disciples of all nations is all of our purpose, but we're all called to do that in a different way based on the gifts that he's given us. And sometimes it's in the weakness he's given us. What part of your story it seems the most broken, is the most hard, is the thing that you're probably most ashamed of? For me, it was my broken engagement and how bad I was at relationships. God took me to get my master's degree in relationships, have helped hundreds of people get married across the world, having healthy relationships, and together getting to do that and write books on it.
And I was terrible at relationships. I got broken up with after a long 5-year relationship, couldn't find anybody else to feel like God is now able to do that. I was, people, horrible at English in school. Did not read a book in school, like ever, hardly ever.
Mr. Athlete.
I was doing all of those like for dummies or like reading and not even reading that.
Spark Notes.
I have now written 4 books, people. God will use the things that you're weak in in his strength, and he'll be able to do it. Like what you think you can do, God can do so much more.
Right.
And all it takes is saying yes.
Yeah.
God, yes, I'll do that with you.
And a lot of times it's the weakest parts that he builds your heart to have the ministry to help people. So for me, it was women that were in really dark places and broken and having their identity in men, but then to be free and have their identity in Jesus and enter into healthy godly relationships. My heart literally bursts for people like that. God has given me a mission and a ministry for broken marriages, for people in broken places to make them whole. And I would not have had that if I hadn't walked through that. So it's sometimes in those weakest places. So we don't have to compare. We can stay in our lane. We can celebrate others. I believe a big part instead of comparison is to celebrate. It says, rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. And God started giving me a heart to do that online, to genuinely celebrate people in our lives that we're getting great opportunities.
You're so good at doing that.
And be genuinely grateful for the 5th pregnancy of one of my friends or the 6th pregnancy. And I've been praying for a baby and God hasn't given it to me. Instead of that narrative, that old lie of God doesn't care about me. God is holding out from me. No, let me fix my eyes on Jesus. God, I trust your timing. I trust your way is perfect. I'm just going to take that next step of obedience. For us, the next step of obedience in 2020 was saying no to those brand deals and then saying yes to making Cultivate Relationship the course and work really hard at that and learn as much as we could to help people. It is so cool to see what God can do, and he can use any of our weaknesses for his strength. So fix your eyes on Jesus, look to him, get your identity from him, and walk in that purpose and not trying to conform, audience of one. So I just really pray that people could walk away knowing that, feeling so free and grateful for exactly where God has you now. Pick out what you're grateful for. Do what Caleb always does, writing those 5 things every morning, what he's grateful for, and just thanking God for where you're at and taking those next steps of obedience, that next step of that yes, maybe to take, that no of what to take, and not being it about, anything else or comparing, but about him.
That's so good. I fully agree. And I hope people are encouraged by this. I think that they are based on our story. And just, I just want to say, I really appreciate you sharing this and first taking this step out. I know it's scary. I know it's hard. It's always hard. Like we feel like God has called us to be just unashamedly ourselves. And you're so good at doing that. You're very brave. And I appreciate you. And I think that you're amazing for doing this. And you've just helped so many people. So I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, babe.
And I love you. And you look so beautiful today.
I love you, babe. Would you pray for everyone today?
Heck yeah. Father, we thank you for this day,
Jesus.
God. We thank you for the journey you've taken us on, Father, for the highs and lows and the hard things, but also the good things, Father. We thank you for the blessing of having each other and for taking us out of the slimy pit and putting us on a rock, Father. And I just pray, God, that you would just encourage the people watching, whoever it is that's here, God, whatever it is that they're doing, God, you see them, you're with them, you're covering them. You have a great plan and purpose. I pray, God, that you would put that thing you've been nudging them towards, that thing that you have been asking them to do. And I pray you give them the courage to step out in it. I pray you give them the courage to be obedient, the courage to say yes to you, Father. And I pray that you would bless them, encourage them, make the path straight,
Jesus.
illuminate the path,
Yes,
and help
God.
them to walk a new path with you, God. Whatever that is, wherever that takes them, and knowing that, God, you will provide the way and you will make the way because you've
Yes,
called
God.
it, Father. You won't call them to anything that you won't strengthen them to be able to do.
Yes, God.
And I pray, God, that you would encourage them today. I thank you for my wife, the amazing woman she is, and I thank you for this opportunity to be able to share our story. We love you, Father, and in the mighty name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
I love you.
I love you.